These schools are scared. These schools are scared that something is going to happen. Now, I bring all this up to say something very simple, is I do understand their concern. I also think they are full of crap. And let me explain why. And there's really 3 reasons why. But before I get into that, what I want to say is this, is that there are certain things in life that I don't agree with, or there are certain things in life that I don't like, but I understand why a decision is made, right? I think that's the important one there. I understand there are certain things in life that I don't like, but I understand the decision is made. Let me give you an example. For people who listen to this show religiously, I talk a ton of college basketball. I love college basketball. I grew up in Connecticut, grew up a Husky, all that stuff. I was in Vegas when the Rudy Gobert stuff happened and the Pac-12 tournament was canceled the next day. It crushed me. It crushed all of you listening. But at that moment, I understood why it was done, okay? I understood that it was the right decision given everything, that as much as it sucked to not have an NCAA tournament, it was the right move in that moment in time because we knew so little about this virus. I came on the air. You can go back and listen to that podcast from March. I came on the air that night, said I hate to say it, but it's the right decision. I wish I could say the same thing about where the Big Ten is headed with football. Because here's the thing, if I thought they were doing what was right, if I thought they were doing what they truly believed, and if I thought they weren't just trying to protect their own butts, I would defend them. But here's why it makes no sense to cancel college football season. I got at least 3 reasons. The first reason is that we're literally playing sports everywhere else in America at every level, okay? I tweeted this on Saturday, but we have had youth sports. We have had high school sports. Iowa high school baseball plays in the summer. They just completed their season. We've had AAU basketball. About 2-3 weeks ago, I streamed an AAU basketball event where players flew in from all over the country. Ironically, by the way, the tournament was in Indiana, Big Ten country. And so you mean to tell me, by the way, that it's safe for hundreds of high school basketball players to fly into Indiana for an AAU event without any testing, but it's not safe to play college football? Makes no sense. And that's beyond the fact that the pros are all playing, that every other sport in America is back. The NBA is back. The NHL is back. NASCAR is back. Golf is back. Boxing is back. UFC is back. Baseball is back. And I know some people say, well, look at how much baseball is struggling. Baseball isn't struggling. Stop it. The Miami Marlins went out to a bar, and that's why baseball had the first outbreak. And so essentially what it boils down to is 30 teams in Major League Baseball. 1, the St. Louis Cardinals have essentially had any trouble. Miami Marlins were idiots, and that's why baseball was essentially canceled. Why baseball was essentially in trouble for a minute, and they figured it out. And by the way, shout out to Major League Baseball, who has pushed forward, who hasn't listened to the negative media. And I'm going to get into the media in a second, because some of the people in the media are inexcusable, and they are, in fact, to blame for all of this. But baseball is not failing, so don't tell me it's failing. So that's the first reason. We got every other sport back, but it's not safe to play college football? What? Get out of here. Here's the second reason. This is the one that drives me crazy, and this is the one where a lot of you found me. It's that 13 out of the 14 campuses in the Big Ten are going to be open for in-person classes this fall. Now, all of them are a little bit different. Some of them are just back to normal. Nebraska, Wisconsin, Ohio State, I believe they're all basically going to function as the school normally would. Some of them are hybrid. I think the University of Minnesota, it's like 2/3 of classes are online, but 1/3 are in person, and kids are going to live on campus. Iowa will not have more than 49 students in a class. If it's over 50, it'll be online exclusively. But the point I'm trying to make is 13 out of 14 schools will have students on campus. Rutgers is the only one. So you're telling me that it is safe for little Johnny or little Billy to go to economics class at the University of Illinois or the University or Purdue University, but we can't have football? When Johnny's not getting tested every day. Johnny doesn't have access to doctors if something happens and he gets sick, the equivalent of a Purdue football player, an Illinois football player. Now, he obviously has access to doctors if he does show symptoms, but if he doesn't show symptoms, we're never going to know that Johnny is sick. If a football player is even asymptomatic, they're getting quarantined, they're getting tested multiple times a week, they're getting checked in on by doctors multiple times a day. So it's safe to send Johnny to econ class, but we can't play football at Purdue. It doesn't make sense. And that's the one that drives me crazy the most. If this is really about protecting the football players, okay. If it's really about the safest possible scenario for football players, I will listen to that. Here's the problem. It's not safe for them to not play football, but then go to class. That doesn't make sense. No one with a functional brain would ever suggest that that makes sense. So don't tell me it's what's best for the football players and there's no way we can pull this off. So we can pull off a 49-person econ class at University of Iowa with no problem, but we can't play football? Give me a break, man. Give me a break. And I should reference, for those of you who don't know, and you all do, any football player that doesn't want to play this season, they can opt out and won't lose their scholarship. So, that's an important part of this too, right? Nobody's forcing these kids to play, but I just want to reference that. But this is the part that drives me crazy. 13 of 14 campuses are open, but we can't play football on those campuses that are open and have students on it. It doesn't make sense. The third thing, and this is important, and I think I was one of the first people anywhere that was bringing this point up back in April. I remember talking to a basketball coach in late March, early April. They have a lot of international kids, and a lot of their kids never even went home during the beginning of this pandemic. And the coach said to me, he said, dude, we're glad to have them around. This is the safest place that they can possibly be. If they have an issue, we can get them to the doctor right away. By the way, they have access to tutors. They have access to study hall. Whatever they need, they have here. They can get food for free. They have housing. It's taken care of. That's much better than sending them home to your parents' house where maybe they're living with, I don't know, in some cases, and I'm just going to be honest here. I mean, you have kids. Some of these college football players, good background, good neighborhoods, good parents, safe, whatever. They have their own room. They have their own bedroom. They got the man cave downstairs. There are a lot of football players that have that. There are a lot of football players that don't, though. There are a lot of football players that are living 2, 3, 4 kids, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in a one-bedroom apartment. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I literally talk to college football players who have told me, my kids are I remember in the spring semester, they're supposed to take online classes when they got 6 people in a one-bedroom apartment. How does that happen? But that also brings up one of the most important points here. They're safer on campus. They're safer with their teammates. If we don't have football, some of these kids are going to get sent home. So let me ask you just a very simple question. If you think football shouldn't be played, is it safer for them to be on campus where they're getting tested multiple times a week, where the campus is doing everything to keep them safe, where they have access to all these doctors, where they can be taken care of 24 hours a day if there's an issue? Or is it safer to go back home? Is it safer to be a student athlete trying to do schoolwork from home when there are 7 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment? And for people who have ever been through that, my wife works, by the way, with low-income students in this exact situation, so I don't want to say I understand, but I know people that experience it, including these coaches that I talk to. It makes no sense. So now we're going to send them home, right? They're going to be living in that place. Maybe they want to go to Subway for lunch. Maybe they come back with something. Maybe they infect grandma and grandpa who live with them. Maybe they infect mom and dad who have a pre-existing health condition. So we're sending them back out into the world where they're less safe rather than actually letting them stay on campus and play college football. Now, I know people will say, well, just because the football season's canceled, it doesn't mean that they have to leave campus. No, but you think the school's going to test them 2, 3, 4 times a week if they're not playing? I doubt it. Not going to happen. Not to mention that a lot of these schools are going to send them home because they don't have online learning or they don't have on-campus learning. So they are going to get sent home. And if they do, they're at more risk, and the people that they live with are at more risk. And so that's why this is so important, because none of it makes sense. And if it made sense, I would be okay with it. I'd be frustrated. I would be annoyed, but I would at the very least be okay with it. I would at the very least be okay with it if it made sense, but it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense because every other sport in America is playing. So it's safe to play youth baseball, AAU basketball, American Legion baseball, travel all over the country to play AAU. But we can't play college football where everybody's on campus, everyone's getting the same testing, you got access to all these doctors? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense when 13 of the 14 campuses have kids on their campus. It doesn't make sense when the safest place the players can be is on campus getting tested with their teammates. By the way, let me say one more thing too. Start to wrap up here. I'm going long. I'm fired up. I'm annoyed. But can we put the spring football crap to bed? Like, enough with this, like, well, if we just push it back, like imagine if we had said that with the NCAA tournament in March. Well, we're just going to push it back to September. People would be like, what are you talking about? That doesn't even make sense. Spring football is not going to happen, people. Okay, I'm just telling you right now. Spring football is not going to happen. And one, it's just going to suck because we're going to lose a lot of the top players. But, like, let's take that aside. Like, let's just put aside the fact that we're going to lose a lot of really good players. Let's just look at the facts, okay? So the facts are we're going to cancel football now, but we're going to play in the spring, which means we're going to start practice in January probably, right in the middle of cold and flu season, right when, by the way, kids are going to be coming back to campus at that exact time. So first of all, workouts are probably going to get pushed back because they're going to be away for the winter break. They're all going to test positive while they're home. Then they're going to come back, test positive. The tests will get pushed back, or the practices will get pushed back. It's going to be in the middle of cold and flu season. It's cold as hell outside in Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio and Pennsylvania. But we're going to pull off a football season, and that's under the assumption, by the way, that we have a vaccine. And guess what? We're probably not going to have a vaccine. I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to be an expert. But even if we do have a vaccine, couple things. One, even if we have a vaccine, the idea that we're going to be able to mass produce it and we're going to get football and everything's going to be fine and everything's going to be back to normal is nonsense. We're not going to be able to max produce this vaccine to the point that all these football players can get it right away. Enough. And even if we do, should I not mention that we have a flu vaccine and that 60,000 people die from the flu every single year? And so my frustration comes from the fact that we are in a different place than we were in March. In March, it made sense to cancel the NCAA tournament. In March, it made sense to say, I don't know when we'll ever get back to the NBA, and we might have to cancel this whole 2020 season. Might not crown a champion in the NBA. Might not play Major League Baseball. But we've advanced. We understand the risks. We understand what can happen to young people. And yes, it's scary. And yes, there is a chance that somebody could get sick. And yes, there is a chance that somebody could be hospitalized. But these guys understand that. And I'm going to get to that in a second. And that's the part that frustrates me is, like, again, if the logic to not play made sense, I'd be okay with it. If the logic to play in the spring made sense, I'd be okay with it. But it doesn't, and it's not going to happen. And here's my question. What if we don't have a vaccine? What if we don't have a vaccine in the spring? What if we don't have a vaccine next August? Does that mean we're not playing football for 2021 either? Because that is the gauntlet that has been laid down by these administrators today if we move forward with without Big Ten football this fall. It's that we cannot play. It is not safe to play, even though kids